So we've got some questions. Do you try and keep remote teams close by geo? Yes. So this is in theory controversial for some people. We have business hours for our Trello team. I believe they are New York time, 12 till 4. And what we say is you need to be online for that time so that we can do the in-person collaboration, even though we're not physically in person. That is more to do with the nature of our business in that we are creative, we are doing things in teams, and we are faster when we do that in the same moment. We, in theory, allow people to therefore be anywhere. People then self-select how far away they go based on time zone. We do have some people in random locations and they end up doing really weird hours, but they'll do those 4 hours of overlap and then they'll work some other times. It's not ideal, but it's a trade-off that works for us. It's not going to work for everyone. You mentioned Trello was better at remote. Can you tell us more about that? Yeah, so if I think about why they're better at remote, it's because they built it on purpose. So if you think about Atlassian, we're a 15-year-old company. The majority of our time has been in singular locations or a couple of locations. We were born and bred in Sydney. We then added San Francisco. We added Austin. We've added offices, but each office itself has been a large center of gravity. Trello built Trello to be remote from day one. Michael Pryor had it in his mind. And that means you make very different trade-offs. They didn't build big shared space in their office. Our office in Sydney has got big cafes and lunchrooms and libraries and hangout spaces because we co-locate and we are creating multiple spaces for people to work in. You walk into Trello, they have a tiny kitchen and then lots of desks and small offices. They have optimized that space for remote working because over half the people are not physically in that building. They've also changed the way they pay and remunerate. They changed the way they hire. They changed the way they performance review. Everything about that model is optimized for remote. The thing with that is when you build it that way from the get-go, you make very different decisions than when you're an existing company and you're trying to change to that. Because when you're trying to change, what tends to happen is you want to keep a little bit of the old and add a little bit of the new in, and you end up with this really weird hybrid, neither of either model. So we've learned an awful lot from Trello about remote work. And then Michael and some of the team have shared that actually they've learned a huge amount from us about large-scale distributed teams. So actually both parties have benefited from sharing there. Thank you, MP, for nailing it. How do you inspire change towards leadership teams? Leadership teams are probably the hardest to change. Hardest to change because they tend to come with tenure, and tenure and experience you can swap for conservative and sticky. Like if you've been good at something for 30 years, that's a hard habit to remove. The thing is, that habit that you learned that you were good at for 30 years was in a world that we're not in today. And so you have to do some of the unlearning. For me, our best leadership teams are constantly evolving. Our best leaders probably are servant leaders. They are there to serve the team, amplify, multiply the team. They are not there to command and control. They're not there for glory. They're there to listen and learn. Our best leaders are vulnerable. They will admit when they're wrong. And our best leaders often don't think they've got the best ideas. Their job is to ask questions and not provide answers, which creates a very different environment of whether you've got a flat org chart or a hierarchy. I kind of don't give a shit how Workday structures your org chart. What I care about is how we interact in a meeting. Like I can act like a peer and a colleague, or I can act like a boss and a jerk. That's a decision I make when I walk in the meeting. That decision's not predetermined by the org chart. So for our best leaders, we see that happening. We hire for values. So we refuse to hire highly intelligent jerks. We do a values interview as part of our hiring process. And that values interviewer is agnostic to the team you're joining, and they have veto rights. So you can absolutely ace your design test, your product management test, your engineering test. But if you don't represent our values, not culture, we do not do a culture check, because culture should evolve and change. But what we say is, be the change you seek is a value we live by. How are you going to bring and amplify that with our teams? And at the leadership level, that's even more important than anything, because a bad leader will kill 100 really intelligent, sort of high-energy potential people. So we constantly work on that. I think I've already done the learn and change about remote work. We got better at it. We took a whole lot of overly cumbersome policy and process and said, actually, there's better ways of doing this. And learning, I've probably got time for one more question before anyone waves at me. Software development performance reviews, subjective and dependable managers. So actually, performance reviews, remote, co-located, if I could just speak honestly with you, a complete fucking waste of time. I mean, thank you. Whoever somewhere decided that once a year they were going to shove a thermometer in you and tell you whether you were good, bad, or indifferent, I find slightly obtuse. And so what we've said is performance is something that's ongoing. We expect our leaders and managers to have performance conversations every day, week, month, whatever. There isn't a set frequency. It's do it in the moment. If we have a meeting and you act like a complete jerk, that is something we should talk about in that moment. Not in the room, but the minute afterwards. Similarly, if you do something awesome, I should sit you down afterwards and go, that thing you did, that's brilliant. Please do more of that. So we don't reward, we recognize behavior, both positive and negative in the moment. One-on-ones, peer reviews, constant discussions. What that means is by the time a performance review cycle comes around, there's nothing new in there. There's no ambush. There's no surprise you're awesome or surprise you're shit. It's just, hey, here's all the things we've talked about. Now let's have a structured conversation, and our performance reviews are now about development, not about the year that was behind you, which has already happened, so why discuss it at length? It's about what can we do to help you grow, develop, and evolve. What can I do to help you, and what can you do to help me? We actually measure our performance reviews based on your individual contribution, how you live our values, and how you contribute to your team. It's all three in combination that you need to deliver. If you don't, then you're not going to excel. So that's my time up. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. Any questions for the rest of the day, just give me a shout. Thank you.